life has a way of making you wait for the things you want most. For me, it was the dream of motherhood. I was 25 when I first felt that urge to have a child. Some might say it's too early, I am too young, but I couldn't help it. My husband Tom, always the voice of reason, had a different timeline in mind. His love for me was unmistakable, as was his desire for a family, but he was always the sound of reason, worried about our financial instability and career uncertainty. Tom had always been ambitious, determined to climb the corporate ladder to ensure a stable and good future for us. He wanted our children to have everything they needed, a comfortable home, quality education, and a life free from the burdens of financial strain that he had known growing up. I understood and admired his dedication, but as the years slipped by, my longing for a child grew stronger. I watched as my friends started their families, their lives blossoming with new life. Each baby announcement, each set of tiny, joy-filled photos on social media was a bittersweet reminder of what I always wanted. I celebrated with them, of course, but each celebration was a reminder of what I am missing, the felling of longing and loss. As I approached my 30th birthday, I was desperate. The feeling became more serious. I felt like an observer in the story of my own life, waiting for the moment when I could start playing the role I most desired, the role of a mother. Tom sensed my growing impatience, my frustration. He knew me well enough to see the sadness behind my smiles, the silent hunger for having a child. Finally, after 5 years of waiting, planning, and dreaming, Tom came home one evening with a look of resolve in his eyes. He took my hands in his and said, "Let's do it. Let's start our family." I was in shock. "What? Are you serious?" And he replied, "Yes, let's do it." Relief, joy, it was overwhelming. Our dream, long deferred, was about to become a reality. The path to parenthood was finally open to us, and we stepped onto it with a mix of excitement, anticipation, and a love that had been deepened by the wait. The positive pregnancy test changed everything. The moment I saw those 2 little lines, a surge of happiness unlike anything I'd ever felt before washed over me. I was going to be a mother. We were going to be parents. It was as if all the waiting, all the longing had been leading up to this beautiful, life-altering revelation. I remember running to Tom, holding that plastic gadget, the test in my shaking hand. "Look," I said. I will never forget his reaction. He stood up, looked with a mixture of disbelief and joy. We hugged, laughed, and even cried, tears of joy as they call it. It was a moment of pure happiness and joy, the kind that engraves itself into your memory so deeply that you can remember it in vivid detail years later. The months that followed were a mix of preparation and anticipation. We started by transforming the spare room into a nursery. Tom, with his usual thoroughness, researched the safest cribs and the most educational toys. We painted the walls a gentle, soothing shade of green, adorned with soft, fluffy clouds and bright, cheerful suns. I would often find Tom in there, late at night, just standing and imagining the life that was soon to inhabit that space. Our families and friends shared in our excitement. The baby shower my sisters organized was a testament to this shared joy. It was a beautiful day, filled with laughter, advice, and stories of parenthood. I sat there, surrounded by love and support, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Our baby was already so loved. As my belly grew, so did my connection with the little life inside me. I would talk to our baby, read them books, and tell them about the world they were about to join. Tom would join in, his voice a soothing presence. We would lie in bed, his hand resting gently on my belly, feeling every kick and flutter. It was our special time, a time of bonding for the 3 of us. The anticipation of meeting our child grew with each passing day. I found myself imagining who they would become. Would they have my eyes, Tom's smile? What would their laugh sound like? What dreams would they chase? As the due date approached, a sense of calm settled over us. We were ready, or as ready as any first-time parents could be. We had waited for this moment, planned for it, dreamed of it. And now, it was finally happening. Our little family was about to grow, and we couldn't wait to welcome our baby into our arms and into our lives. The birth of our son, Jack, marked the beginning of a new chapter in our lives. It was a chapter filled with firsts. His first cry, which echoed powerfully in the delivery room, his first gentle grasp of my finger, so tiny yet so strong. His arrival turned our world upside down in the most beautiful way. Tom and I, once just a couple, were now a family. The early days were a blur of sleepless nights and endless diaper changes, but they were also filled with moments of indescribable joy. Jack's first smile, a fleeting but magical sight, became a daily blessing we eagerly awaited. I remember the first time he laughed, a delightful sound that filled our home and our hearts with happiness. As Jack grew, so did his curiosity. He was fascinated by everything, from the colorful toys in his room to the birds chirping outside his window. We spent hours playing on the floor of the nursery, building towers of blocks only to laugh as he knocked them down. Each day with him was a journey of discovery and learning. We celebrated Jack's milestones with excitement and pride. As all parents, we cheered for his first steps. Those wobbly and uncertain were met with applause and laughter. We watched in amazement as he transformed from a helpless infant into an adventurous toddler, full of energy and mischief. Parenthood was more challenging than we had ever imagined, but it was also more rewarding. Tom and I learned to function on less sleep, to find joy in the simplest of things, and to enjoy every moment possible. We supported each other through the tough times, rejoiced together in the good times, and to be patient throughout the early parenthood journey. Jack's third birthday was a milestone that brought a mix of emotions. It marked how quickly time was passing. Our little boy was growing up, each day gaining a little more independence. The party was a simple gathering with family and friends, yet it was filled with love and laughter. Watching Jack blow out the candles on his cake, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. He had brought so much light into our lives. That night, after the guests had left and Jack was sound asleep, Tom and I sat together, reflecting on the past 3 years. We talked about how much Jack had changed our lives. I dreamed of this moment, motherhood. As we sat there in the quiet of our home, we knew that our journey was just beginning. We discussed having another kid, why not? It would be good for Jack to have a brother or sister. There were so many more love to share, so many more memories to create. We were excited for what the future held, not just for Jack, but for our growing family. Little did we know, life had other plans that would test me and Tom in ways we never imagined. The news of our second pregnancy brought with it a wave of joy and excitement. It was a delightful surprise, a precious addition to our family. I remember the day we told Jack he was going to be a big brother. His eyes lit up with a mixture of curiosity and excitement. "A baby?" he'd asked, his small voice filled with wonder. We nodded, and I took his hand and placed it on my belly. He rubbed my tummy gently, a gesture so gentle and protective that it brought tears to my eyes. As my belly grew, so did Jack's anticipation. We told him he will have a sister. He would often sing to the baby, tell her about his toys, and excitedly talk about all the games they would play together. We decided to name her Lily, a name Jack picked out himself, saying it was pretty like Mommy and the Flowers. Tom and I prepared for Lily's arrival. We were more experienced now, less nervous about the small things. I won't lie. We reused some of Jack's nursery furniture, used a few of Jack's old toys and books, which he insisted on sharing with his sister. Our life took on a new dimension as we observed families with 2 children. I watched siblings interact, the playful teasing, the shared laughter, the occasional disagreements followed by quick forgiveness or parents' intervention. I imagined Jack and Lily growing up together, and I couldn't be happier as a mother. But life has a way of reminding us of its unpredictability. Just 2 weeks after Lily's birth, our world was turned upside down. Jack, our vibrant, curious, loving little boy, passed away suddenly in his sleep. One morning, he simply didn't wake up. Tom went to get him out of bed in the morning and he wasn't breathing. That day is etched in my memory with painful clarity. Tom's agonized scream from Jack's room, the chilling, unbearable silence that followed, and the crushing weight of disbelief. It was a nightmare from which we couldn't wake up. The following days were a blur of tears, confusion, and profound grief. Our home, once filled with the sounds of Jack's laughter, was now weirdly quiet, the silence broken only by our cries. Lily, so tiny and unaware, became an emotional reminder of the brother she would never know. I don't know how I'm supposed to live in the world, much less be half the mom to my new daughter that I was to my son. Our friends and family rallied around us, offering support and comfort. But the loss of Jack was a grief too deep to be filled by words or gestures. He had been the center of my universe, and now, in his absence, we found ourselves lost in the ocean of grief. As I held Lily, feeding her in the still of the night, I can't help it. How can I? My tears would often fall. I know she's a blessing, a precious gift, but her arrival was overshadowed by an unimaginable loss. I struggled with guilt, feeling that my joy for her was, in some way, a betrayal of Jack's memory. I just hold her, feed her, and cry. I'm so thankful she is here, so I'm somebody's mom, but I don't know how I'll be that chill, confident mom ever again, that I have this big black hole where my heart was. Or how will I ever let her sleep unsupervised? Tom and I tried to navigate this new reality, and we often found ourselves alone in our sorrow, unable to provide the comfort the other needed. Our home, once a sanctuary of love and happiness, felt so dark, a constant reminder of what we had lost. In those dark moments, I hold on to Lily, grateful for her presence. She's now my new connection to life, to a future that I was struggling to envision. I knew I had to be strong for her, but the pain of Jack's absence was a constant, aching, heartbreaking presence. The world moved on around us, but we were stuck in that moment of loss, unable to see a way forward. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with questions and fears. How could we move past this? How can my daughter grow up with the shadow of the brother? How could we find joy again in a world that no longer had Jack in it? These were questions I couldn't answer, but I knew we had to try, for Lily's sake, and for the memory of the son we would always love and never forget. I'm a mess, and my whole life revolved around Jack. Most of my friendships are moms with similar-aged toddlers, including my social media, and I just feel so overwhelmed because just seeing any siblings is so painful. The loss of Jack plunged us into an ocean of grief. Every aspect of our lives felt like a struggle. It was during this time that I realized I needed some help to navigate through our pain. I turned to social media. Once a place where I shared the joys of motherhood is where I went to share my sorrow. Other moms who faced similar losses, with their gentle and understanding approach, became a beacon of hope in my darkest times. I realized I wasn't alone. Others experienced the same grief. I remember one that wrote, "Don't worry about trying to go back to normal. You are just surviving right now, and that's okay." Her words were a lifeline, a permission to grieve without guilt, to acknowledge my pain without the pressure of having to hide it. I learned that grief is not linear. It doesn't follow a set pattern or timeline. Some days I felt like we were making progress, and then a wave of sorrow would hit us with such force that it felt like we were back at square one. My support community encouraged me to be gentle with myself, to allow these waves of sorrow to come, and to express my grief in whatever way I felt right. Holding it in would only delay the healing process. Tom and I talked about Jack often. It was painful, but it was also healing. I learned the importance of keeping his memory alive. He will always be a part of our family, Mom told me.
Once you have healed some, you can decide how you want to honor him.
We were supposed to have our two, my little Lack and Lily, and be done. I was super excited to not be pregnant again, and now I have to decide if I want to give her a sibling or make her grow up alone in our messed up grieving house. As the seasons changed, so did our journey through grief. It wasn't about leaving Jack's memory behind. It was about learning to live with it. We spoke about our future, Lily's future, what it could look like. The most significant decision we faced was whether to have another child. The thought was both terrifying and hopeful. We were supposed to have our two children, our little Bunny and Lisa, as we playfully called them, and then close that chapter of our lives. But life, as we had learned, rarely follows the script we write. After much contemplation, heart-to-heart discussions, and nights spent awake, weighing the pros and cons, we made a decision. We wanted to give Lily a sibling. It wasn't about replacing our little Bunny. No one could ever do that. It was about Lily, giving her another opportunity to have a sibling, the sibling she didn't get to witness. It was also for Lily, who we didn't want to grow up alone in a house that had seen so much grief. I remember the day we made our decision. It was a quiet morning, just after dawn. Lily was still asleep, and Tom and I were sitting in the living room, the first rays of sunlight streaming through the window. We talked about our fears and our hopes, about the responsibility of bringing another child into our lives. We knew the journey wouldn't be easy, but we were determined to walk it together, as a family.